Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, my dear. Pass on back to Mr. And pass on back to He's extra page. I think the guy told us to run. Oh, here he is. Speak of him.
Thank God you're here.
You can sit right back there, Alan. That's fine. Wallace is trying to, we just came back to agenda review executive session. Wallace is trying to get to come up on the screen. Now he has a laptop and we can go print and bring it back. If we can't get this, it's been a crazy day. So I don't know what you're going to start with. It should be. Yeah.
That's the way.
Oh. No, I thought they were. Yeah, Nina did. Oh. Okay. Okay, so we need to say that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks.
Hey, can we get copies also? It said it has to go.
Oh, thank you. Here's the nine. Yes, she can have that. The nine. Okay, and then you all share this one for the nine?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Evidently, the tech guru here says the screen is not coming on.
Internet is,
Watch.
yeah, and it's saved on my desktop.
So we can do the whatever change, we're just gonna go with the flow. Don't even start. No drama today.
Not drama.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay, we're gonna start with the health, so that Alan talks, because clearly we're eating, breathing COVID right now. And so we're gonna have him go ahead and present this information as it relates to health and safety. And then we'll go from there. So he's gonna start.
Okay. So there were a couple of changes. The Friday morning, the emergency order came out from the governor's office, DOE, and the Department of Health, which is all under the governor's shop. It had some changes in there, and so they should be reflected in what I just gave you, the quarantine protocols. Now today, I had a training with it's mainly principals. Several of the schools have COVID czars, which we highly recommend because there's a chance that the school will not be overwhelmed. There's a chance they can be overwhelmed. So the principal has to be careful about putting themselves in a position to where they can't get the phone calls and all the stuff that they need to do. So we did that today, and then I just came back from the board agenda review where I presented it to them. Y'all can look at this, and we will. So Heather Thomas is uploading this into our Leon County School homepage under something called In Class. So that's the name of our open health plan this year's In Class. She's loading it in there for the community to see and everybody to see. And then Rocky did a Facebook Live on that earlier today, a press release earlier on today. But some of the changes that came down were in relationship to quarantine. So quarantine now is 4 and 8 for the two numbers. So 4 days and day exposure, that's day one. You count 4 days, you can take a test. These are our students. You can take a test, and if it's negative, they can come back. But students impact employees. And then if you don't want to take a test, they can go 7 days with no test and come back on day 8. The 4-day quarantine is, if you compare that to last year, which was 14 days. So we know that we had over 900 or so. We had 10,000 in quarantine last year. About 3% of our quarantined students ended up getting sick. None of them from the school day. Just about all 367 of them came from exposures to extra co-curricular activities after hours. Okay, so health department kept that data and they got that data to me. And so I think, before I get into this, I think the governor, I think they realized how devastating it was for students to stay home. Now, regardless of which side you sit on in this very divisive decision or very split decision, students staying home for long periods of time is not a good thing. It did not, our academics certainly suffered. Our social, emotional, and mental health of our students suffer. And that goes to adults too. So I think that's probably why that governor and his group came together and they reduced the quarantines. So right now with our students, now with staff, we're requiring all staff, all Leon County staff, that cannot get 6 feet, which I have 6 feet right now. So according to this policy, I'm covered. But if they cannot get 6 feet, they have to wear a mask. That's all staff. That'll be in schools, it'll be in county offices, everywhere. They get 6 feet, they can take the mask down. Also with staff, if they are vaccinated, it's the first red bullet on there. Or they've had COVID within 90 days. And I'm very aware of the different scientific views on this 90 days, 60 days, or 8 months. I've heard it all. Right now, we're going to go with if they're vaccinated or they've had COVID within 90 days, they can stay put. They don't have to leave. If they're an exposure case, so in other words, they've been closer than 6 feet within 15 minutes, then they can go get a test. They can get a PCR or a rapid test, and they can come back right away. But we're not gonna, there's no reason to hurry them all. They can get the test at the end of the day and come back the next day. There are, all the CVSs in town are 18 years of age and older are free. We have several other sites that are related to neighborhood medical and Leon County Department of Health. The students below that can get free testing, okay? BAMU still has free testing available. So with our staff right now, if they're vaccinated or within 90 days of having COVID, they can stay put. Now these are asymptomatic, right? Because sickness overrules everything and always has. But if they are an exposure, as long as they're asymptomatic, they can run out and get a test. They literally could get one at lunch and come right back if they wanted to. So that's in a nutshell what you're seeing here. You can read down the list. We're going to put this in a graphic organizer format like we did last year. Some people can pick it up easier that way. Now, if you test positive, you're 10 days. That hasn't changed. So you're 10 days out with a positive test. And you're 10 days from the positive test or when symptoms show up. That's kind of important because whether it's the 4 or 8 day quarantine or the 10 days, it's all from when the symptoms start or the positive test. A lot of times this last year, we found out about it, by the time they found out about it, they'd already been removed from the exposure by 2 or 3 days. So we're figuring that it'll probably be just a handful of days for most students, but we're trying to keep them on campus. But that's it. That's it for the staff. That's a quick nutshell for the staff and for the. There's one other thing too. In the emergency order, it allows the opportunity to opt out, not for staff, for students. Okay, talk about that in there. So we're offering an opt-out medical. We're calling it a medical opt-out for our students if the parents would like it. It requires a physician's signature or a psychologist, licensed psychologist's signature. We put that in there because certainly a lot of mental and social emotional health situations with this. So if parents don't want their students in a mask, they can simply have a physician or psychologist sign that, and that's in Focus. So the teacher opens up Focus, you'll see a checkbox for that. It says, okay, little Jennifer in second period doesn't have to wear a mask.
And not for adults.
No.
If you have a special accommodation, you can reach out to our department for that.
Which I think
If
we had
there is
88
one,
last year. So special
Anybody,
accommodations.
I had no one opting out last year from that.
That's more vaccinated.
Pardon?
Last year, vaccination wasn't allowed. There's a lot of, I'm representing a lot of people that are saying that if they're vaccinated as adults, why can't they not have their opt-out also? The other question is, you said K through 8, so what about high school?
High school's mask option.
So we're trusting the high school children to be honest about their status?
Need their parents? Their children.
They don't have to opt out, they're mask option.
Or
It
not?
has-
We're gonna caucus for just a moment.
White people and that.
I think
part of what this, component of this, that if the answer to, which seems like it's already an answer, our MOU for COVID leave is respond to that based off of this so that we know in totality what that looks like.
Yeah, we will, without procedures, we will develop procedures and tell everyone about it, which is.
No, I meant our formal request in the MOU.
Of the pay code,
Yes.
yes, the answer from the board was they're not going to offer.
They know right now it's best for her.
Last year, I think we have I won't say given. There is on the books a significant amount of content that was earned that is available. And the funding is such that we're not able to, and we don't have the answer that this is not going to be ESSER 2 refunded, so it would be all fund balance. And we're not in a position to offer this, and we believe, fortunately, because of the vaccine and this policy, people will be able to come back a lot faster if they do go out at all, if they're vaccinated.
So to speak to that point, and I understand that there was a settlement for the compensatory time that was a settlement. And it sounds like that settlement is now being used as justification to not.
No, it's not justification, it's just that will help alleviate some issues if there are issues. It's not justification, the money is the justification.
And so our first year teachers that don't have any leave that may find themselves in this situation don't necessarily have any of that compensatory time from last year or any accrued leave. So it's part of the reason why we wanted to make sure that all instructional staff have been covered.
I fully understand. I do believe they get some sick leave right up front,
3 or 4 days. Right there. Right.
that day.
So is there any documentation that says from the district standpoint that ESSER 2 can't be used for something like this?
So it's not district documentation, it's actually in the General Appropriations Act, and I think we've kind of spoken to this before. You saw the legislature actually took ESSER 2 and dumped it into categoricals And now DOE has actually said what that spend can be done, what spend can be done from there. So one of the categoricals is technology. That's not, the other one is finding lost students. And again, these weren't categoricals that they asked any of us about. This is what the legislature did with the money. And then the last one is academic acceleration. And the academic acceleration has lots of language tied to it as far as interventions, instructional materials, that kind of stuff. There's nothing in there that would be tied to COVID leave.
So, but that's ESER two, that's categorical, and there's 67 million that's coming from ESER three that needs to be negotiated with the union.
So we don't have
if,
any information on ESER three. Like the last information we got from DOE was that they still have not even applied for it from USDA. So we don't have any information on that, none. We have no inkling of it, nothing. The last we saw was communication from them, but I can tell you the communication that we did receive from Florida DOE and building their application was more basically looking at intervention type stuff. It was not anything related to leave, but they're building their application, but I have no information on that.
So the building of the application is taking place right now from the Florida Department of Education.
As far as we know.
And then in terms of the quarantine procedure, because now this makes. Let's start first here. The top two areas before the red part and when the red part starts. So for clarity, it starts talking about quarantine protocol when tested positive, employee or student. Then it kind of talks about contract tracing, which makes it seem like this is going to happen to everybody. But then the red part under the line seems to carve out people that the top two parts don't necessarily apply to. Is that the case, or is the top two bullets what's really happening? I'm trying to understand, because we're saying we're going to do 10 days and do all this stuff, testing, but then in red, it's anyone fully vaccinated or tested positive for COVID within the last 90 days and asymptomatic is not required testing or quarantine. So it basically contradicts the first two bullets and leads to like a false impression of what's going on. So just for clarity.
I haven't received that feedback, and I've shared this with hundreds. But I'm not saying, Scott, if they're tested, if tested positive, you got 10 days from either symptoms or when your test results come in.
Okay.
Employee and student.
Yes.
But then it says right below that where it says that you're vaccinated. I'm reading this
If
document,
you're fully,
and I'm very capable of reading it. What the confusion lies in that it says that if you're vaccinated, it's not required to get tested.
if you're fully vaccinated, that's correct. If
Okay.
if you're
So
asymptomatic,
if there, let's say an exposure at my house, my husband tested positive, and I'm not required to go get tested.
now your household protocol,
That's it.
Okay,
you're on the bottom,
okay, so
which
then
was one of our number one causes of positive cases last year.
I'm a visual person. This lies a little,
That's why we're putting it into a graphic
Okay.
organizer like we did last year.
if I tested positive, if I was exposed by a student in front,
Your exposure test. Okay?
and that's the second, that's the middle part.
Are you tested positive or are you an exposure test?
I was exposed, but now I test positive.
Once you test positive, we're gonna go 48 hours back to find out other positive potential exposures around you, right? But once you test positive, you're 10 days out.
Okay, so if let's just say I'm in class, I get exposed. 14 days later, 5 days later, whatever, all of a sudden I'm not feeling so hot. Then, and I go and get tested on my own. I don't have to get tested.
You don't feel good, right?
Right. I have a
Okay, so
headache.
that overrules everything, right? Sickness overrules everything.
Okay.
Always has. So people that are symptomatic, they need to go get tested.
Vaccinated or unvaccinated,
Correct.
everybody.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we have a little variant out there. It's about according to TMH, it's about 12% of what's called breakthrough, okay? So if you have symptoms, that always overrules everything, get tested.
Somewhere on the flow chart or on your, out, communicating out needs to like blare that.
So what we have is we're making one of these things that says, yes, no kind of things. And that helps, because I'm like you, I like to see it visually too. We actually did that last year. Now Heather Thomas is now making that. She's probably gone home now, but she's putting that. We hope to have that posted in the next day or two for the community. That would help it. I don't disagree. You have to really look at this.
Right, because you're like, if your household, you go to the bottom, if you're not, you go to the top, if you're symptomatic, go to the top. So no matter what, if you're feeling a symptom, you've been exposed, and you go and get tested, positive, you're out 10 days.
10 days.
From the date you feel the symptoms.
It could be either that or it could be the test day. See, sometimes people don't feel good. They wait a little while and they get the test, and we'll go back to symptoms then.
Whichever happened first, symptoms or test first.
As a matter of fact, that's most of the cases. Most of them get a little something, they hang in there and they start going downhill. And they get
Are
tested.
you worried that a teacher may be in the classroom? Like from what I've heard and what my doctor says, it could be anything from a headache to a big toe, sore big toe. I mean, like it could be anything. So if all of a sudden I have a headache and I'm like, well, I was exposed a couple days ago, whatever. Do you recommend at that point to go get tested, or do you think that maybe it's just a headache, I just Advil, it goes away, the next day it comes back? Like, I mean, I'm exposing kids at this point.
If you're a known exposure, you start to feel bad, you can get tested. Now, if you're not a known exposure, like I had a headache this weekend, you know. So.
I teach middle school, I'm gonna have
If you are in a classroom with students and there is a positive case in your classroom.
Right.
And you are high risk, so you take it upon yourself to go get tested, even though you're asymptomatic, but you're high risk individual, and then that comes back positive, you're now out for the 10 days.
Correct.
But then there's no coverage of the leave, so you're taking all your personal time, even though the exposure happened in your
You
classroom.
test positive, you're gonna be just 10 days out. That's all I tell you. We have to discuss the leave part of it.
Okay, yeah, but so your
Yeah,
10 days
yeah,
are on your
yeah.
own symptomatic.
Yes.
It's gonna become a problem over in the long run for the teachers that have to
So-
use their personal leave for that, and that's been an issue that has been discussed, not just at my work site, I have heard it from people all over. What about the COVID?
That's
Are we
first priority.
using our own time to, for COVID leave, especially when, through no fault of your own, you're exposed and you're at school? Or
Like a high
student
school.
that you know or whatever, and then you say you don't get a lot of leave that brought loaded to us.
So there's three things y'all may find this interesting. So I said on that webinar with TMH, I mean, that's local, that's our biggest COVID board. One thing that we had in this protocol and we took out was that if you vaccinated and you're asymptomatic, so you've been vaccinated, you don't have any symptoms. But like you said, you may be concerned, right? You've got asthma or something like that. Well, we tried at one time. We were encouraging not to get tested because there was this rumor out there that, and I was spouting it too, that people that were vaccinated are going to pop positive. Well, the TMH call said that's a very small group, and they said the current Delta variant. There's another variant down the road, but the Delta variant, it's really about a 12% that it's jumping on people that are vaccinated. So 69 people in the hospital Friday in the TMH COVID ward. 60 were unvaccinated people that did not get the vaccination. 9 were vaccinated, but they had other issues. They had all kind of other health issues. There were at one time a couple of school-age children in there, but they all had, I found out that they had the health problem. That's essentially.
I guess our concern is, and this is just, I'm fearful of this. And of course, you know, at this point, it's anxiety, and, you know, we have to kind of weigh those out. But some of the fear is that I'm fully vaccinated and I feel a headache, or if I don't want to lose 10 days, what's to say that I'm gonna go get tested or even bother saying anything? Especially if I'm fully vaccinated, I'm not gonna get really sick.
It's automatic 10 days.
I mean, it's kind of like putting it
She's
out,
back.
and I'm just putting it out there for the people, like, that's not me. Okay, I will go home, because I don't want to get everyone else that I love to death and work with. But there are some teachers out there that are fearful of losing those 10 days. That's a lot of days, and that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of things, and I'm just fearful that we're gonna have these, and I know it's a small percentage of 10% breakthrough of the fully vaccinated. We're encouraging vaccination for teachers, but that's
That
a
was for the
lot.
month. I was
Yeah.
for the entire month. So like 4 weeks of realistically no pay single mom. I'm living at Alan Potts's house if I had that problem. This year I couldn't. You know what I mean? But so my question is, you said extenuating circumstances would that lead, you said we'll use so many per year. Would that be consideration? You know how
Okay,
would that be a consideration as extenuating circumstances?
what I don't wanna do right now, I'm gonna say it for the good of the order, is I'm not gonna say on a public domain that everybody now has access to use that. The people, when there have been some specific issues, health issues or concerns, I've dealt with them. They need to reach out to the office. So I'm not gonna blanketly say
Yes.
the 4 days automatically can be used towards that. I will not say that. But if there are issues that people have, there are other health issues that will present themselves or circumstances out of teachers' control. Every time someone has reached out to my office or talked to Brett Shively, he and I we figure it out, work it out, done, sign off on. But I will not say in this public forum that the 4 days that you're allowed to use this year can be used towards COVID leave.
How many new employees do we have in instructional staff?
Okay, I have to ask Brett. I don't know the number offhand. You know how many new hires we have? I know you sent it to me. I just don't remember the number you sent. Instructional. I'll look it up. Go on to the next question, then I'll
So
find
the
it.
reason why I'm mentioning is because not one of those teachers has entered this 12 days from last year. So
But they also have the opportunity, just for the good of the order, to potentially be vaccinated unless there's an extenuating circumstance.
but even when you're vaccinated, you can have symptoms according to the first bullet. it's
Right.
10 days, so
Right.
that means that.
If they test positive.
Right,
Yeah.
and when you have a vaccine, you can still be positive and then give whatever variant that's coming, pick a letter in the alphabet, and somebody goes ahead and gets that. And then now you're out for 10 days at that time. So the point is, it sounds like we want our KDP to two of a sense of, we want the freedom of these choices of not participating this way, not participating that way. But we want to protect learning, but it seems like protecting learning is shortening, exposures, the student parts is 4 days instead of 7. Get them back in as quick as possible, but as we know, in the case of a teacher, until the last day of the quarantine last time, day 14, did they not show positive. So it takes a while for these things to manifest themselves. And students as well, but I mean,
But not for most.
So
Not for most. You're impossible to cover every avenue. Let me mention this to you. TMH, those doctors, that Dr. Watson and other group, they were adamant that we could have been out of this with vaccination.
gotcha.
Okay, so with that,
Yeah.
oh,
Okay.
You're good.
You good?
All right.
Okay.
You let me know if you can't hear.
No, you got a good voice.
Yeah.
Got a good teacher voice. So if it's a small amount of vaccinated people that can get this breakthrough, why not put in place a COVID leave, vaccinated COVID leave that you have available to say, hey, you're vaccinated, you were exposed, I'm so sorry, here you go, you get at least half of 5 days. I mean, like, why can't we come up with something, work together, so that we're not putting it so much on the employee because I will be honest with you, new employees are going, they're
Whether
gonna be
it's like a
scared to
sick
go
bank or
forward.
something like that, where everybody can put one day in or something.
I mean, there's gotta be something
to
creative.
cover people that are gonna be put in these situations.
If it's only 10% of vaccinated people getting this, that's not a lot, right? I mean, out of 2,200 teachers, 50% are vaccinated. Okay, so that out of 50% of, what's that? 1,300, 1,400 teachers, that's 14 teachers.
And we have to remember that only 30% of those that are 12 and over are vaccinated. So that means that the more likely that they're gonna go ahead and contract it and have a more severe reaction. So as soon as you fit in and start the classroom,
I'm not like asking about it. How much COVID leave was used last year?
Now, I don't have those numbers, if you had asked him, because you're asking off the cuff, I will tell you, Scott, I don't have that data, but I can tell you, currently posted, we have 34 instructional positions. Okay,
So the
But I guess we'll
last
let-
administration felt there should be some leave.
The last administration?
CARES Act. First CARES Act.
Okay,
They came up with this whole idea of.
federal administration.
yeah,
And it,
I'm like,
then it expired. Then it expired. Then they said you can voluntarily give it for tax credits for businesses. And that expired. Now the whole world's, it expired, COVID leave has expired. So we asked for what you asked for, ability to not count. Separate situations. That's where we're at, and I know there's always gonna be a what if. This is where we're at.
so with Article 1613, leave for contracting communicable disease for the work site, it gives everyone 3 extra days. Then that means that everyone has 13 days this year during the pandemic for their COVID leave, or how's that? Article what? 1613. What would be the level of tracing back to the classroom, since there's this idea that there's no COVID at the schools, which is not the case. So
I don't know, first of all, no one's been ever proved substantially likely to have contracted this or a work site. That's why there's no workers' comp. In any of this, there's no such thing. No one proved that hey, the minute we wish we had a marker to say we got it on.
So for this contract language to kick in, you have to know the exact date, minute of when the communicable disease.
You have to substantially likely to have been contracted his or her work site. I have not yet, maybe Dr. Cox has seen some study, they can tie it to the exact place and time.
So they continually call me over there across the street and say, you never exactly know where to get it. We had a board member the other night that she got it from people that attended the board. They said, you don't know that. I told her that. I said, they told me to tell you, you're not sure. And I love her. I've known her a long time. And so we can't say that. We don't know for sure where we got there.
But if no one goes anywhere else, does anything, does curbside pickup for groceries and that.
Good point.
Then without any.
Yeah, so as somebody that never leaves their house,
But you can have
I go
curbside and you touch a
for-
bag that the delivery guy is positive.
Not, no, no, because it's an airport. So.
But you're
Why
still
we
at the
have
school
all
site.
that stuff, liking something.
That is the
do what?
because Dr. Cox is like, don't take that away. Stop it.
The point is,
It's a mitigating
it's a
factor.
mitigating strategy, it's trying to implement all the mitigating strategies.
High school what?
being as a high school teacher, there's almost no mitigating strategies at a high school. I mean, we're not 6 feet, we're not 3 feet, we're no masks.
You can wear a mask and get back.
Masks are optional. You can always
No,
wash
I
your hands.
understand, but like, I'm wearing a mask, I'm vaccinated, but I'm gonna be sitting in front of 30 students that could potentially be unmasked, unvaccinated for 50 minutes, times by
Six.
6 class periods. And I just find it hard to believe that we can't say that that's where I got COVID when I'm somebody that goes to work, comes home, goes to work, comes home, because I don't have a life outside of work. That's what I do. I like my Netflix, I
So
go
if you
home.
look at 16.13, the very end, the common cold and influenza are not included.
This isn't the common cold.
Or influenza, because you can't prove where you got influenza.
This isn't the common cold or influenza.
I know, it's the same concept, it's tough to pin down. Everyone will say, I only go to work and only go home. I go home in a surgical laboratory. And we know from last year's experience, this is not true. But this went on all up and down the panhandle where people talk like this.
There are some places that are giving COVID leave. So we'll just,
Yes, they are.
So, I know that we make sure that we understand there's not the will of the board to provide the COVID leave.
Right.
Okay, so. Okay. So if somebody would like COVID leave, then any person can see her tomorrow, Tuesday. It's the best place to go.
Don't know if I no comment.
In terms of the 4 days from the date of exposure to asymptomatic, is that just the direction of the state? Is that what that's?
Yes,
What I heard you
that
say?
came out of the emergency order.
So that's the emergency order, that's not science necessarily, or CDC, should I say, from a different health organization?
It came from the Department of Health. Now, let me tell you, the science piece of it, this isn't for me, by the way, I'm a key teacher proof, but this came from TMH, is that the variant expedite is quicker than the alpha variant. Alpha variant is what we had last year, right? So this one shows itself a lot sooner, which was part of the reasons they felt like they could reduce that quarantine. Big piece was how detrimental it was to kids not being in school. They felt like they could knock that quarantine back because it shows itself quicker.
For each one of the variants, because there's a different list of symptoms. Is there like a master list of symptoms? Like when we say asymptomatic, when does that asymptomatic go away? Just trying to understand so that as we communicate it, when are we asymptomatic if it manifests itself in other ways? For example, right now, they're saying that it could be allergy-like, right? So, just trying to make sure that staff.
We've had the same 4 or 5 symptoms listed. And the folks out at health professionals have not called us off that. So, we just stay with the coughing, sneezing, sore throat, that flu-like symptoms is how they describe it. Remember now, I have a whole document. This is just a quarantine protocol.
So, is this document set right now? There's no negotiating anything? This is.
It's set in my book.
If you have a suggestion, we take all suggestions.
So I think part of what we've discussed is vaccinated or unvaccinated, because it's still positive, vaccinated, testing the vaccinated employees to make sure that we're not putting people that are back in the classroom that could be positive. Especially if students are going to be there home pieces.
I think he's trying to get clear is that if you are exposed as an employee, it is your responsibility to go get that tested. Period.
The vaccinated do not need to test. If they've had it within 90 days, they do not need to test.
Even if they're symptomatic.
If they're asymptomatic.
What we're suggesting, right? Not the word suggesting,
Yeah.
gets cough off.
That's fine.
The suggestion is if we could say, if you've been exposed, you go get tested. And if it's negative, then great.
And when we say that.
Can we say that? Can we say why? Why no?
Superintendent, we want to encourage vaccinations for one reason.
Right.
If they're vaccinated, they don't need to get tested. They can stay put if they're not having symptoms.
So would a
And they're essential
reasonable
workers.
time be, in terms of they're not having, like, if this is set and we're not gonna have the lead, the idea is to encourage individuals to vaccinate and to incentivize the vaccination of those that choose to share their vaccination status with a second bonus of some kind to make sure that we don't have that.
Oh, what?
So that we
A nice
don't
bonus for being vaccinated.
want to encourage.
So people should vaccinate for their own health and for their students, not for cash.
I'm not saying that they should, but if the intent was to get the vaccination so that the school instruction doesn't get impeded, it was just asking to make sure that we should.
There's a benefit under most quarantine laws if you're vaccinated. Virtually everyone.
I would say the benefit was just not testing when you go back to work.
See? Our biggest fear is to not put safety of our children and our students first. And if they are exposed at work and they go to work, and now you're exposing not only the students, but your colleagues. Why can't just a simple test say, here, go get a test, make sure you're negative, here. Why can't we just say that? Why can't we encourage that? Why can't we say that if you were an employee and you're going to expose other people, go get tested?
This employee can do that, we're just not mandating. If the employee is that concerned, they can test every night. CVS.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Right? We're not stopping them. They get tested if you like to.
So one of our high schools. So here's, I'm trying to understand this. Because if a fever is a symptom,
I'm
then,
feeling flushed, by the way.
then a student sent home with a fever may return after 48 hours. Fever free. Unless the quarantine protocol applies, but if you have a fever, aren't you getting tested?
Because there are other things out there.
That would someone with a fever get tested?
They might. Student.
They might, but you might not as a student with a fever.
Correct. Oh, we had, clear, let's tell you clear right now, we had probably hundreds of kids that were asymptomatic in school session. It's a fact. But they didn't pass it on, like certain groups told us it was gonna do. We're not harbingers of death. None of that stuff came to fruition. But they had it, but they didn't pass it on. And we still are in that boat, according to my webinar, in some respects. We have a variant that's more aggressive. It's more aggressive on the contagion. So we feel like we've got a protocol in place that keeps us safe for the most part. It will not be 100%. None of us can draw from this 100%.
But Alan, if it's safe, then I understand it's not gonna be 100%.
And by the way, we're all speculating, because
Yeah,
none of us can
exactly.
see the future.
You
right?
know, absolutely, we all agree on that. But if that's the goal to make it as safe as possible, allowing high schools to have an optional, how is that? Because they're allowed to get vaccinated?
Yes,
Okay, but how do we know they are?
we
We
don't.
don't, so that you're putting teachers at risk in the high school level. Because I'm wearing a mask to protect you, if they're not wearing a mask, they're the teachers and the students around them are not being protected. So I mean, I understand, the road was paved with good intentions, but there's a huge hole in the intentions when high school kids are not, there isn't a measure of security in there and to protect the other students nor to protect the teachers. So quality of education is number one priority, and health. There's a, we can go through this many times, however, the big gap is that high school, and those teachers are not protected. And the other students are not protected.
Well,
So
same kids, just because I have a mask, they're not both, it's not both.
So then why do we have a mask mandate at all?
It's not even, you can't mention mask and vaccinations, and that's a common mistake that's happened.
So if the teachers vaccinated,
Vaccinate is cheap, vaccination is cheap.
Vaccination.
The mask is strictly another mitigating strategy.
But it's not.
I mean, like our board member that she never takes her mask off. I mean, there's an example, I was telling her. I said, well,
Well, okay, so on that case, board member never takes her mask off, you got 120 high school teachers in front of 30 students, very similar to what that board meeting was, coming and going, people in and out. You could have some 120 teachers that were doing their best practices that were required, now all at home.
For 10 days.
but the stats aren't that though. Nationwide, any stat, it's
Vaccinated.
not 100% teachers will get it, it's in the 90s, you're good to go. You're
Wasn't
vaccinated.
Charles like a hotspot? High school hotspot
It's
last
a
year?
hot spot right here, we're hot. I don't know.
You gotta
school
understand.
has issues.
You're hearing from teachers that have worked all day, we're anxious, we're nervous, we're scared,
And
okay?
this
Some of
side
us.
has worked all
I
day
know.
too.
And you guys are hearing some of that come out, and we're just needing to understand there's a lot of anxiety. You sit in meetings every single day with Department of Health. Every single day you hear the science behind it, 10%, it's still only a 10%, it's, everything's gonna be, okay. The reassurance that you're getting is what we're not getting yet. And that's what we need to hear. Okay, we're hearing it, we need reassurance.
reassurance for what though? They're not gonna get a guarantee.
I'm not saying a guarantee, but 10%, if you say 10%, you're
There's-
gonna give 10%
That's
of leave, if you just 10% leave, like, okay. Here we go, 10%, you get 10%, okay, of the people that did, that's, okay, now they can go, okay, well, I'll go in, I got it, it's okay, I'm not gonna have to spend 10 days at home if I catch it, like, okay. Like, they're not panicking.
10% is still 12 teachers and 200 students in a 2,000 school setting, that's a huge chunk. I mean, when you look at it, that's a big chunk. I don't know, when you don't have X amount of school site staff out to substitute, your 10%, it might be that number.
So the best thing to do, that we know of right now, is to get vaccinated, and get within 6 feet, wear a mask. That's the best, that's what my wife's gonna do.
So that's
That's what she
exactly
did.
what we're asking, but for the
We're going
sites.
around, I mean, I've seen back there, we're going around and around on the same issue. I think if I could just suggest, I think one issue is vaccines, right? Kids can lie, and similarly, it's something with, right? Teachers not all teachers are vaccinated. And so I think that, for whatever reason, and so I think that we just keep going back and forth, it's like this rabbit hole of confusion, and we think of all these things. I think I've heard the vaccine, we need, maybe we can put down joint statements. The single greatest mitigating factor in preventing the spread of COVID is the vaccine. We encourage we lock arms, we encourage everyone who can get a vaccine, get a vaccine. I think assistant superintendent Spock mentioned that, or something, the superintendent mentioned the vaccine plus that's going around, whatever they're called, right?
So we're doing things like that for the high schools, where we're going to be putting buses at locations. I think to your point, not every school is equally vaccinated, right? And then there are some schools where, on Friday, I think, motherhood is 850, right? Like, you can go to some schools and everybody is masked and like you can give a high five. And then there are some schools that that is not the case. We don't have the stick or the carrot to make that a reality everywhere. And I think that that's really scary, and we just need to say that's really scary, and we're gonna do our best. We know the schools, without naming the schools, where we're gonna have issues. And I think you and others have talked about supporting those principals in a different way than perhaps others, right? Like getting out there, making sure they're first in line with the vaccine buses, making sure they're doing all the things we got to test, right? Like non-verbally, nod your head, right? Like it's talking about this, I'm not crazy, right?
And we've sent buses. all
Yeah.
schools.
And we're gonna do it
2
again.
times, 3
We're
times.
doing it again,
Yeah.
right? We're gonna do it again. We're gonna do these things to mitigate as much as possible. With that said, we fully expect that there are gonna be some people, for whatever reason, we're gonna thumb their nose at this. And so we just need to, we have no teeth to make anybody do anything. And we wish we could, but we can't. So we need to,
Figure out what happens. We gotta.
I mean, the lead thing is an idea. I don't know the other stuff. I mean, I don't know.
Number one, this is just, if it could have the flow chart and it being very much, if symptoms, if you feel like this, like.
Yeah, we got that. Kim, we had, you'll see it this week.
And so you'll send it to them?
Yeah, we'll do that. We had it last year, we just had to take it down because they put the new stuff.
Dr. Cox, quick question. I heard you talk to the school board during the workshop briefly, and it was about buses. Students will have to wear masks on buses, correct? Yes. That is for all grade levels, correct?
As far as I know, I've got to get with James to make sure we're communicating that at high school.
Okay, so if that's the case, and we've already gone in the face of the governor, then I'm not quite sure what the extra is not to just make it pre-K-12.
Well,
That's the
what's
part
the
that
level
I'm
of
not
players
understanding, because either way, you're upsetting the governor or you're not. And now you're saying, gonna let you know what some teachers are gonna think. We value our bus drivers more than we do our high school teachers, because we're gonna make them wear masks for the bus, but we're not gonna make them wear a mask when they come to the classroom where there's 35 to a room. So
I think
this is where-
that's a really bad argument.
I'm not saying it's a bad argument or
But
a
it's
good argument.
that,
I'm
I
just saying
understand how
that-
people feel, but I think that there's a we are really working hard to make everyone feel as safe as possible. 11th and 12th graders generally don't ride the bus, put a pin in it. Now we're talking about 9th and 10th graders, those children can be vaccinated. And I think what we come back, we keep circling back to is there are children who will never be vaccinated for whatever reason, and there are children who will be vaccinated. The bus is a different environment in terms of circulation and ventilation than the classroom. Right? Like think about that. There's a difference. And so it is not that we value bus drivers more than we value teachers. We truly,
I'm
but
not
it's,
saying
but
that.
it's
What I
the
said
reality
was
of the
it would be
environment on a
organized
bus
by somebody
is
to
really
say
different
something.
than the environment in a
And so-
school. And I would hope that you help people feel okay about, like, we can say that in our out loud voice, like a bus is a tool. The classroom is not.
The classroom also, in many of our schools, like that, we don't have the same ventilation
Oh,
systems as others.
Tell me about
So-
that, Lee.
Yeah.
So my point is, I'm just saying that, to say that that the ventilation's not the same, yeah, sure, get that part, but at the same time, if we're gonna take a mitigating strategy in one area, because it's a mitigating strategy, logic would say, apply the mitigating strategy elsewhere. Your freedom is vaccination or not. What we want is to check.
Yeah.
And that-
Yeah.
Gotta go, gotta,
Yeah. I know what it is exactly
Move on.
wrong.
Maybe we can talk to some.
Yeah, we definitely, we'll share this.
I'll share this with Bob.
Okay, so the other thing is this, Kim, I'm sorry to ask this, and I should have asked, before. Do we know what the average salary is that's used for the staffing plan?
I can put, because it's that benefits not tied into it, I don't have it with me.
Okay, because what I'm thinking of is I'm just looking for an average hourly rate that could be applied, because there's thought process. Well, what we're trying to do is we're gonna say only 10% of people are gonna be impacted, right? Then
Maybe.
maybe, this is where we're, the fingers crossed, all that stuff, maybe have to come back to the table another time, whatever. But if bare minimum, what we can do is say, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take based off of 2,200 teachers, 10% being 220. Okay, and giving them 80 hours of COVID leave, right, to cover whatever that is, at the hourly rate that is, then we negotiate what that pot of money is, based on that, as the sick leave bank that people can draw from if they do get COVID as that 10%, and if that begins to exhaust itself. then
That's not, we already are paying that, because we had to pay that, I mean, that's already in the books is what I'm saying, because we're already paying that, we're already paying that to teachers. So that's additional money, it's not money in the
I
salary.
know that.
Okay, I just
I
wanna
know
make
it's different,
sure.
But
you're
it's not additional money at the additional money that was originally asked for. It's additional money that's trying to find a way to compromise so that people that are concerned about COVID leave have the ability to then be on leave paid if it's gonna be a smaller percentage of people that we anticipate. And as it draws down, if need be, we come back to the table, we have a conversation. But it wouldn't be at the price or the point that you would think otherwise. So we're trying to come to the table with at least a compromise here to cover people.
And I'll leave that, this, idea, calculate that as X percentage.
Yeah. So noted. We'll check these things are back to the superintendent report. I know Alan and I definitely, and Leonard and Will can do that. Are there any other questions?
There's
or
one for Dr. Cox. How often do you meet with the Department of Health?
Every day.
Every day. Okay. And how often would you say, how quickly can you get protocol changed?
Or who?
I mean, if I need to change protocol, we can do it now. The problem is that you have to de-educate people. So once you train them on a system and you like, her questions were good. And those kind of things go to the administrators and they call us, okay? And I have to answer, right? Under our current system. So when you have to change the protocol, I have to de-educate everybody to the old protocol. We can do it, but it's better if you wait till like we've done till this Monday, as long as you can. So
You
I
mean,
change-
do what, Kim? Change the protocols in terms of district wide, or you mean just?
Point being, we can change them if we have to. It's always
So
convoluted.
you're gonna be reactive to the Department of Health
Always, yes,
and
right. Which is why Zoom's best friend.
Now, is it true that we are giving K through 8 a 3-day grace period at the beginning of school for just to have them wear the mask, or should they be wearing them from the time they get on campus?
Let me answer that. So we sent out today our medical opt-out form, okay, to all the schools to send out through listserv and stuff. We're giving them until Monday, so a week from today. But if they can get it done ahead, if they have somebody, if they absolutely do not want their student pre-K to 8 to wear a mask, hopefully they can find a doctor or psychologist to sign off on it. But they have until Monday.
Are they expected to mask on Wednesday?
Yes.
Yes. So I think your question was, they don't have to wear one until they get the form, is that what you were asking?
But good, Scott. Strongly recommend, strongly encouraged. That was the wording that we agreed with.
Yeah.
That's on Wednesday.
Wednesday, Thursday, so they have it, yeah, up to Monday.
It could come in potentially without.
But you can also ask them if they forgot, do they need a mask here, have masks in the room, hand them one.
So Rod's back here. You
That's
delivering
the
them
case,
in,
right?
right?
All schools will have all kids masks be delivered by Wednesday. All schools.
Right.
But my point
Pre-kindergarten,
is,
sorry.
they don't have to wear masks Wednesday through Friday.
No, they do.
Or they do, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
If they don't,
That's the
then
clarity.
you need to let somebody know, so they can give a note, they can take it home.
Unless they have that opt-out form on Wednesday.
Scott's not wearing it here, Scott. At the end of the day, I'll call your parent, the dean, or somebody, let them know, because in middle school, we'll have kids that show up that parents didn't know, and you call them, they'll be like, no, he's supposed to be wearing a mask. So we'll give them a letter, they'll go home, and by Monday, it'll be enforced.
The other thing is, one of the things that was discussed today as well with the school board was that the listservs would go out as far as the dashboard when positive cases took place. The communication gap that occurred last year was that there was not notification to staff. That there was some gaps in there where people, the parent was notified or a listserv went out and people were like, well, where do I fit in this? Because there was a delay from when the Department of Health was contacting people or whoever was doing the tracing. So so I'm asking, is there a way for a faculty notification or something where staff, like, or are we just expecting everyone to sign up for listserv?
So this year, especially now that we're in a little bit of what's called a surge, the contact tracing is done at the school by either the administrator or the COVID czar. So they will be giving the student the letter, the health department letter that shows them their return date. We will not be waiting on calls to come like we did last year. So the listserv should be pretty immediate. And that's how Chris, who does our daily dashboard, will be getting it. He'll be taking those listservs and applying them to the dashboard. So it should be relatively quicker.
Is there anybody within the instructional bargaining unit that is classified as a COVID czar, right?
I don't know. We did 200 people a day, and the administrators picked who their COVID czar was. I don't know if it's a teacher.
There's a couple of deans.
Right. And as we discussed last time, the concern was, your dean duties on top of your COVID duties on top of that. It's not necessarily, in place of, but it's in addition to.
And I want to go back really quickly to what you were asking about. So students are asked, we're asking nicely for students. But if a student in a middle school comes in and doesn't have a mask and they don't have their form signed off, we're not going to say, we cannot berate the student. It's, did you forget it? It's kind of like what Scott Hansen said. But we're asking all of our students, right? But if someone comes in without one, it's those gentle reminders that we can offer to make sure that a student doesn't go back and say, I was made to feel bad because I didn't have one on. Oftentimes they're forgetting. Okay. Is that all you have from the Dr. Cox for now?
That is it for now, unless there's anybody else that has a question. I think that the one thing is, you said that talk about COVID, we just one other things we also, just so that we understand on this side of the table that anything that deals with money, the school board has said no to.
I have one question for Dr. Cox.
Okay.
That came from a number.
Dr. Cox, there's one more question.
Antibodies, the antigen, we were asking, does that same protocol apply this year?
Just the 90-day from your COVID, from when you had COVID and vaccination.
Thanks,
Some more
Dr.
questions?
Cox, for working around the clock. And they had a long day, long weekend.
So y'all can cut your cable and watch the school board meeting tomorrow night. It will be very entertaining.
I'll be there with you.
It'll be a long night.
Well,
Under speakers right now.
Bring cookies and milk.
There we go.
Who's going to do? Well, you-
I'm gonna ask to caucus for another 5 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Cox. We're gonna caucus about this. We'll be back.
She just said, take your Joe outside and we have Take your Joe.
Definitely on it, sweetie.
Tag.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we just try to get when you're available. And then he likes to answer.
That's true.
All right, hit us up.
So I think that in terms of, you won't equate where the frustration is, but say that it's probably collective frustration on some things, especially when it comes to the financials that we're asked of. And because of that, what we're asking is to be able to come back as soon as possible with a proposal that would take into consideration pulling back a couple things, but making it more towards the
things that we know that are of mutual interest, and to have that taken into consideration by the school board. You know, I've been visiting school sites and probably been to 3 schools today, talked to faculty and everything. And just as a board and through our reps and everything, we understand we have a shared issue of what's going on in terms of public education in the state of Florida, and how everyone is being treated. But with our turnover ratio of faculty and inability to kind of fill positions and find qualified people and have substitutes and all those types of things, every aspect of that has an impact on the classroom teacher. Because they have to find themselves, they have to do this. Can I have my own life with my own kids? So I've got to do this. And it's trying to find that balance. And when we hear things that are not necessarily from the folks on that side, but district-wise, as far as a position of no on certain things, it begins to have an impact on how people feel about it. So we look forward to coming back to something.
We are gonna ask that supplies this and have a chance to look over the proposal that you've given us, and we're gonna come back to the town.
Ask Julian to address it. It's not, I just want to make sure I address it. I haven't had a comment. Are we doing Q&A? I'm here. So just with me.
So, yeah, I think once we figure out where everything lands, that includes Dr. Cox and maybe you, trying to make sure we speak directly to people. But we didn't want to educate other folks as well, understandably. But in terms of the order to provide instruction when people were in quarantine and everything, and our understanding of, in principle, more hybrid, that I didn't know if you as a district wanted to share what that impact would look like and what the thought process is, just so people understood.
Yeah, so I feel strongly, I don't think it's gonna change superintendent. We are not moving forward hybrid regardless of the executive order. In reading through the executive order, there are 2 sections that relate to me. One is access, and one is access to a student's absent, they have access to instruction, right? And so I think we check those boxes, right? We have an LMS campus, we have a curriculum, FLBS content or the content, we have an ability to meet, right? So I think in terms of access, I feel like I can initial that for the state Board of Education very comfortably that students are not going to be denied access who are at home, whatever they call it, not quarantine, whatever they call it. 3C on page 2 or 3, the last page, has to do specifically with instructional personnel and administrative personnel. The students who are at home because of quarantining have to have access to instructional personnel or administrative personnel. Again, it doesn't specifically say their own instructional personnel or their own administrators. So we're working on some creative solutions because we want to keep the classroom teacher time students safer for a whole host of reasons, least of which is student achievement. If the teacher is trying to do a couple different things, they can't do those well. We want them focused on students in front of them, and we're working on some creative solutions so that it's not the teacher necessarily who is going to be providing
Your homework on
the homework content. With that said, I think if like a kid is absent, one or 2 students absent, would be my expectation, kind of like a teacher's going to respond to the student. That's just professional, that's how they are, they're professionals, right? We're really talking about instruction related to, gobs of students who are going to be absent, that kind of thing. So stand by, I'm sorry, I don't have anything firm right now, but I'm working diligently. The lens by which I think the direction that we given by the superintendent is, we're not doing a hybrid, find a different solution, and I think we can get there first. Protect our time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We keep getting, it's gonna contact that. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Yeah, we will get. Last year.
Yeah, can you go in here for a second?
I don't know what's the